there are a bunch of records this year that have been big, successful records. I'm sure you've heard someone talk about them if you haven't heard them. Neon Bible by the Arcade Fire, big, huge record, did great, went to #2 on the charts. Ga 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 by Spoon went to #10 on the charts, I think. Wincing the Night Away by the Shins went to #2. Modest Mouse, a band who I saw at the Bowery Ballroom in 1999 and who've been putting out really good records for a really long time, went to #1 on the Billboard charts. It's an unbelievable thing. It's an unbelievable thing to happen. But there are a lot of really, really good records that came out this year that sort of got lost in the shuffle. Again, now that indie rock's no longer functioning as a subculture, it's a lot easier for smaller records to get lost because there's so much attention being heaped on a small handful of records that become pretty popular. So some of those records that I really enjoyed this year but didn't necessarily break through to the culture at large. A record called Tears of the Valedictorian by Frog Eyes, an amazing band out of Victoria, Canada. They are super duper weird. They are genuinely weird, not affected weird, not gimmick weird. Their music really takes a bunch of listens to get into. Their lead singer, Carrie Mercer, is a very talented writer and a very unique singer. He gets compared to Nick Cave and Tom Waits a lot, but I find him more sort of directly cathartic than that. And on this new record, he really, I think, reaches a new level of that. It's the most directly expressive record they've done. There's less hiding behind characters and bizarre images and things of that nature. It's a really, really good record. It's on Absolutely Kosher Records. You should check it out. Another record I really, really enjoyed this year was by Nina Anastasia and Jim White. It's called You Follow Me. Nina Anastasia has been putting out really good records for quite some time now. Her first one was called Dogs, and it was self-released in '98 or '99, I think. She's sort of best known for being championed by Steve Albini, who's not somebody who usually speaks out in favor of too many bands. She recorded this record with Jim White, who's the drummer from the Dirty Three, an Australian band, an Australian instrumental post-rockish kind of band, who's a phenomenal drummer, a phenomenally expressive drummer. Part of what I find so interesting about this record, Nina Anastasia is a good singer, but she's not a great singer. She doesn't have too many really impressive flourishes in her voice. Jim White, on the other hand, plays very elaborate and very emotive drums. So what fascinates me so much about this record as a performance by a duo, a drum, guitar and vocal duo, is that the drums are actually carrying a lot of the emotional weight of the music, which is not something you hear too much in that kind of music. So I definitely recommend checking that out. You Follow Me by Nina Anastasia and Jim White. That's on Fat Cat Records. Another album I really enjoyed this year, which has been in the works for a very, very, very long time, is by Vic Thrill and the Saturn Missile, two guys from right here in New York City. Vic Thrill, aka Billy Campion, used to be in a band called the Bogmen, who were kind of a frat rock staple in the mid-90s. Actually, a quite good band. And the Saturn Missile, aka Anthony Rizzo, used to play in Garden Variety, who some of you may have seen open for a Jawbreaker a long time ago. They play sort of space glam electro music, but not in a way that's very accessible, if that makes any sense. Not in a way that necessarily sounds like any dance music that you can latch onto. You can dance to it, but it doesn't sound like dance music. It definitely has its roots in eclectic indie rock, and it's really, really, really good. The record is called Circus of Enlightenment. It was self-released. You can get it on cdbaby.com, or you can pick it up at Soundfix Records in Williamsburg in New York City. Aside from that, a band called Homeblitz out of New Jersey put out a really, really great compilation of all their singles, super lo-fi garage rock. And one of my favorite bands, the Capstan Shafts, just one guy in Lyndonville, Vermont, making sort of lo-fi acoustic guided by voices sounding music, put out a record called Environ Maiden, which came out on Rainbow Quartz, which is very good. Put out another record on Asaurus called Her versus the Sad Cold Eventually. That's very, very good. He puts out, I'd say, probably 1 to 5 records a year, depending on how good a year he's having, I guess. And they're always good. I don't think he's ever put out a bad record. So you should check him out.